Orafa of the 7th or 13th century. This century has produced some mystics of the highest stature. We will mention some of them in a chronological order. 1. Sheikh Najm al-Din Kubra, one of the greatest and most celebrated of mystics. The chains of many orders go back to him. He was the pupil and disciple of Sheikh Rizbihan, and was also his son-in-law. He had many pupils and disciples, amongst whom was Baha al-Din Walid, the father of Jalal al-Din Rumi. He lived in Khwarizm, in the present-day USSR, at the time of the Mughal invasions, before his city was attacked. He was sent a message informing him that he could lead a party of his family and disciples out of the city to safety. Najm al-Din's reply was that, "Throughout all the days of comfort, I have lived alongside these people. Now that the day of difficulties has come, I will not leave them." He then manfully strapped on a sword and fought alongside the people of the city until he was martyred. This happened in the year 624, 1000–27. 2. Sheikh Farid al-Din al-Attar, one of the foremost of mystics. Al-Attar has works both in verse and in prose. His book, Tadhkirat al-Awifya, on the lives and characters of the Sufis and mystics, which begins with Al-Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, peace and blessings be upon him, and ends with Al-Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, peace and blessings be upon him, is considered a source book of documentary significance, and great importance is attached to it by the Orientalists. Similarly, his work Mantiq al-Tayr, the speech of the birds, is a masterpiece of mystical literature. Rumi, commenting about al-Attar and Sana'i, says, "Attar was the spirit, and Sana'i his two eyes. We are following in the steps of Sana'i and Attar." Rumi has also said, "Attar passed through 7 cities of love, while we are yet in the bend of a single lane." What Rumi means by the 7 cities of love are the 7 valleys of which Al-Attar speaks in his Mantiq al-Tayr. Muhammad Shabistari, in his Gulshan-e-Rais, says, "I'm not ashamed of my poetry, for the like of Attar 100 centuries will not see." Al-Attar was the pupil and disciple of Sheikh Majd al-Din of Baghdad, who was amongst the pupils and disciples of Sheikh Najm al-Din Kubra. He also benefited from the company of Qutb al-Din Haydar, another of the age and one after whom the town in which he is buried, Turbat-e-Haydariya, was named. Al-Attar lived during the time of the Mughal invasions and died, some say at the hands of the Mughals, around 626–28. 1228–1230. 3. Sheikh Shihab al-Din al-Suhrawardi. He is the author of the celebrated Awarif al-Ma'arif, an excellent text of Irfan and Sufism. He claimed descent from Abu Bakr. It is said that he went each year to visit Mecca and Al-Madinah. He had met and conversed with Abd al-Qadir al-Jilani. Amongst his disciples were the famous poets Sheikh Sa'idi and Kamal al-Din Ismail al-Isfahani. Sa'di had this to say about him: "My wise Sheikh the Murshid, Shihab gave me 2 advices. One, not to be egocentric. The other, not to regard others with pessimism. This Suhrawardi is not the same as the famous philosopher known as Sheikh al-Ishraq, who was killed around 581 to 590, 1185 to 1194 in Aleppo, Syria. Suhrawardi the Gnostic died around the year 632, 1234. 4. Ibn al-Farid al-Misri. He is considered one of the mystics of the first rank. His mystical poetry in Arabic reaches the loftiest summits and is of the greatest elegance. His Divan collection of poems has been published several times and has been the subject of many distinguished commentaries. One of those who wrote a commentary on his work was Abd al-Rahman Jami, a well-known mystic of the 9th century. The poetry of Ibn al-Farid in Arabic is comparable to that of Hafiz in Persian. Muhyi al-Din Ibn al-Arabi once suggested to him that he should write a commentary on his poems. Ibn al-Farid replied that the commentary of his poems was Ibn al-Arabi's own al-Futuhat al-Makkiyah. Ibn al-Farid is of those who went through abnormal states, ahwal. More often than not, he was in an ecstatic state, and it was in such states that many of his poems were composed. He died in the year 632, 1234. 5. Muhyi al-Din ibn al-Arabi. One of the descendants of Hatim al-Tai, Muhyi al-Din ibn al-Arabi, was originally from Spain. Most of his life, however, seems to have been spent in Mecca and Syria. He was a pupil of the 6th century mystic Sheikh Abu Madian al-Maghribi al-Andalusi. Through one intermediary link, the chain of his order goes back to the Sheikh Abd al-Qadir al-Jilani mentioned above. Muhyi al-Din, also known by the name Ibn al-Arabi, is certainly the greatest mystic of Islam. No one else has been able to reach his level, neither before nor after him. Thus, he is known by the sobriquet al-Sheikh al-Akbar, the greatest sheikh. Islamic mysticism from the time of its first appearance has made progress one century after another. Each century has, as indicated above, produced great mystics who have developed Irfan, always adding to its heritage. This advancement had always been gradual, but in the 7th, 13th century, with the appearance of Ibn al-Arabi, Irfan made a sudden leap and reached the summit of its perfection. Ibn al-Arabi took Irfan to a stage it had never reached before. The foundations for the second branch of Irfan, that is, theoretical Irfan, and its attendant philosophy were laid by Ibn al-Arabi. In general, the mystics who came after him ate the crumbs from his table. Besides bringing Irfan into a new phase, Ibn al-Arabi was one of the wonders of time. He was an amazing person, and this has led to wildly divergent views about him. Some consider him al-Wali al-Kamil, the perfect saint, and the Qutb al-Aktab, the Pole of Poles. Others degrade him so much as to regard him a heretic, calling him Mumit al-Din, the killer of the faith, or Mahi al-Din, the effacer of the faith. Sadr al-Muta'allihin, Mullah Sadr, the great philosopher and Islamic genius, had the greatest respect for him, considering him far greater than Ibn Sina or al-Farabi. Ibn al-Arabi authored over 200 books. Many of his works, or perhaps all of those whose manuscripts are extant, numbering about 30, have been published. Of his most important books, one is his Al-Futuhat al-Makkiyah, a colossal work that is a veritable encyclopedia of Irfan. Another is his Fusus al-Hikam, which, although brief, is the most precise and most profound text of Irfan. Numerous commentaries have been written on it, yet perhaps there have been no more than 2 or 3 persons in any age who have been able to understand it. Ibn al-Arabi passed away in 638, 1240, in the city of Damascus, where his grave is still well known even today. Six. Sadr al-Din Kunavi. He was the pupil, disciple, and son of the wife of Ibn al-Arabi. He was a contemporary of Khwaja Nasr al-Din Tusi and of Maulana Jalal al-Din Rumi. He corresponded with Khwaja Nasir, who paid him great respect. Similarly, al-Kunya in present-day Turkey. There was perfect friendship and cordiality between him and Rumi. Kunavi used to lead the prayers, and Rumi would pray behind him, and it has been said that Rumi was his pupil. There is a story that when one day Rumi came to join Kunavi's circle, he raised himself from his special masnad and offered it to Rumi. Declining, Rumi said that he would have no excuse before God for taking Kunavi's seat, at which Kunavi threw away the masnad, saying, if it did not suit Rumi, it would not suit him either. Kunavi provided the best exposition on the thought and ideas of Ibn al-Arabi. In fact, without Kunavi, it is possible that Ibn al-Arabi would never have been understood. It was also through Kunavi that Rumi became acquainted with Ibn al-Arabi and his school. And it seems that the reason for considering Rumi as having been Kunavi's pupil is that Ibn al-Arabi's ideas are reflected in Rumi's Mathnawi and in his Divan-e-Shams. Moreover, students of philosophy and Irfan have used Kunavi's books as textbooks for the last 6 centuries. His 3 famous books are Miftah al-Ghaib, al-Nusus, and al-Fukuk. Kunavi passed away in 672, 1273, the year in which both Rumi and Khwaja Nasir al-Din died, or in 673, 1274. 7. Maulana Jalal al-Din Muhammad Balkhi Rumi. Known in the East as Maulana and in the West as Rumi, author of the world-famous Mathnawi, this man is one of the greatest geniuses the world and Islamic Irfan have ever seen. He was descended from Abu Bakr. His Mathnawi is an ocean of wisdom and full of precious spiritual, social, and mystic insights. He ranks amongst the foremost Persian poets. Originally from Balkh, he left it with his father when still a child. Together they visited Mecca, and at Nishabur they met with Sheikh Farid al-Din al-Attar. On leaving Mecca, his father went to Konya, and there they settled down. At first, Rumi, being a scholar, engaged himself like the other scholars of his rank in teaching, and he lived a respectable life. Then he met the famous mystic Shams-e-Tabrizi. Rumi was magnetized by this man and at once gave everything up. His Divan of Ghazal is named after Shams, and he has repeatedly made ardent mention of him in his Mathnawi. Rumi passed away in 672, 1273. 8. Fakhr al-Din al-Iraqi al-Hamadani, a well-known poet of ghazal and a mystic. He was a pupil of Sadr al-Din Kunavi and a murid and pratig of Shihab al-Din al-Shuhrawardi. He passed away in 688, 1289.